Why is it that pasta so often has bright colors, but very little flavor of its own, and it's the sauces that are expected to bring the party? I'm so excited for today's recipe of homemade pasta flavored with curry, cinnamon, cloves, and cardamom. This blend of flavors from Afghanistan is so robust and unusual, I've got to give it a try. Hello, welcome to the Random Recipe Project. Today, we're making pasta, thanks to the Pasta Machine Cookbook. I've had this one on my shelf for a number of years, but I don't know that I've actually used any recipes from it. The Nitty Gritty Cookbook started as small single-subject cookbooks. I've got two. Bread baking. I've used this one quite a lot. I've had it for 40 years or so. And then this one. This one's very interesting. It's the Pasta Machine Cookbook. And it's meant for people that have either a hand crank pasta machine, the kind that does the rolling and cutting for you, or an electric extruding machine. And the dough for those two types of pastas are slightly different. So each recipe comes in two variations. Unlike many pasta cookbooks that give you pasta dishes with sauces or a complete dish, this one focuses solely on the pasta itself. And the author wants you to get comfortable with making your own basic pasta early in the book, and then use that knowledge to expand beyond just flour and egg to pasta made with vegetables and different grains, and in the case of today, unusual spices. I'm not familiar with Afghani cuisine, so I had to look this recipe up to see if it was an authentic type of pasta that you would find in the region, and it is not. But she did try to incorporate the flavors typical of Afghan cuisine into the pasta itself. She says in the description you can serve this in the place of rice with your favorite curry. I'm happy the random numbers chose this recipe for me. I've never had anything like it. I'm excited to give it a try. So let's get started. To make traditional pasta, you just need two things, really: flour and egg. Now, some recipes will use water instead of egg, and then from there you can add additional ingredients. You can color it with spinach or beets or squid ink, that sort of thing. You can add some herbs to the dough. This recipe uses spices. We've got curry powder, cinnamon, cardamom, and clove. We'll just mix up the dry ingredients, make a little well in the middle, crack the egg in, and then just sort of knead it together until we get a ball of dough. I'm using semolina flour. The book says you can use all-purpose flour. It won't make the fancy shapes as well, but we're just going to be making flat noodles, so it'll be fine. We'll put in our spices. And this recipe will make just a half pound of pasta, which is enough for about 2, maybe 3 people. So just 1 egg. I just crack the egg in the middle, kind of swirl it around. As I swirl that egg around, it's picking up more and more of the flour. It's picked up enough now that I don't need to worry about it making a runny mess. So I'll just start to mix it all together. At this point, we just knead it for a few minutes to let everything come together. I'm not a pasta expert. It's been several years since I've made a batch, but I should be able to tell if the dough is too dry and crumbly, and if so, just add a spoonful or so of water. There's no special technique needed. I just wad it into a ball and then smear it out again with the palm of my hand. This will ensure there are no dry spots in the dough, which will help it roll out smoothly later on. After about 5 minutes or so of this, the dough will feel smooth and soft and easily forms into a small ball. I think we can let it rest. I'll just wrap it up in a little bit of plastic and let it sit here, and we'll come back to it in 15 minutes. The dough is nice and soft. It's not sticky. It's not brittle. I think this is just right. We'll use my hand crank pasta machine. I don't have one of the extruders. And to do this, here's a little crank. It's got some plain rollers. We can adjust how close the rollers are to get the thickness of the sheet. In the beginning, you'll practically have to force it through the rollers. It will crumble and break and look like it couldn't possibly be right, but that's all part of the process. Smash the pieces back together and run it through again, and again, and again. Each time it will be smoother and more flexible until it just glides through the rollers in a single sheet. And each time I run it through, I'll fold it and then turn it and run it through. As we do this, that will produce a more rectangular sheet. After about 10 times through the widest setting, I can begin turning the dial to bring the rollers closer and make my sheets thinner. If it stretches and loses the nice rectangular shape, just fold it in thirds as before and roll it through again. It's okay to go a step back in the dial when you do so to make it easier. I do this a couple times at each setting until I'm as thin as I want to go. For wide noodles on this machine, I like to stop at the next to last setting. The cookbook had me first cut my dough in half and then go through the rolling process for each piece of dough. I cut the 2 sheets of pasta into thirds to give me manageably long noodles. I run the 6 sheets through the cutting rollers. My machine can make wide fettuccine and skinny spaghetti noodles. I choose the wide setting today. Now we're going to cook all of this right away, so I don't need to worry about hanging them up to dry or anything like that. So all we have to do is put this in some boiling salted water. Just takes a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes at the most, when it's nice and fresh like this to cook. And then we can eat it straight away. Smells fantastic. So I've got a bowl. I'm gonna just have some plain noodles just to try it out. They've got just a little bit of olive oil on them to keep them from sticking, and that's really it. No dressing or sauce of any kind. The smells, like the curry and the cinnamon, even the cardamom is just wafting through the air. So this is really interesting. It smells more of spice than it tastes. They kind of recede into the background. The semolina flour has a nice nutty flavor to it. I can tell that the spices are in there, but they just sort of kind of fade into the background and add layers. It's not aggressively curry. It's actually like reminiscent of like the rice part of a biryani, where it's got the the additional flavors and the individual grains are kind of coated with the spices that the biryani is cooked with. It's very similar to that, only in pasta form. I like it quite a lot. Now I've got, sitting over here, I've got a traditional Afghani curry that's been cooking away all day. It's got some of these same spices, of course. It has lamb and spinach and tomatoes. We've got some toasted pine nuts to sprinkle over the top, give it a squirt of lemon. I've been smelling it all day while I was working, and I'm looking forward to having it on these noodles. So let me go serve it up right quick. I've taken my bowl of noodles and ladled on the lamb and spinach curry that's been cooking all day, and it looks and smells fantastic. So let's give it a try. This combination of flavors, perfect match, as you might imagine, with the Afghani inspired pasta and the actual Afghani stew. The broth from the curry is just sticking to the noodles. It just amplifies the flavors that are already in the pasta. I really like this. It's unlike anything I've had before. I mean, I've had lamb curries, but I've never had a pasta like this. And I've never had it as the base of a curry. It just goes really well together. And it was so easy to make. It wasn't just plain pasta and a sauce on top. Having these flavors infused in the dough itself really adds an interesting layer of flavor. I'm inspired to try other recipes from the book. There's about 100 of them in there, all different kinds of flavors, different additives to the dough. And I was intrigued but skeptical of this one, and it's fantastic. So definitely going to be trying more. And you saw how easy it was. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Like and subscribe. Send me some comments if you have any ideas of where we should go next. I'll see if I can't load the die in your favor. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Random Recipe Project.